Alright, this is part 2 of the celestial clock, and today we're going to do something a little bit different, and that is we're going to look at the date of 1447 BC. 1447 BC, and he had it at March 21st, Thursday, March 21st / March 22nd of 1447 BC. Now, there are two ways that we can go with this. If you watch the first part, you would see that you can go, in this case it's 10 days, so you either go 10 days forward from March 31st of 1447 BC or 10 days backwards. And in this case, he chose 10 days backwards. I'm going to show you why it works for 10 days backwards and why it's biblical and how it fits into the Bible. So we learn from the Bible in the Exodus account, Exodus 12 verse 2, God says the following: "This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you." So here we see that God is creating essentially a new calendar, a new Hebrew calendar at this point in time. And we read in verse 3, "Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month," so that would be the 10th day of this month, of this first month, "they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house." And then you read in verse 6 of Exodus 12, "And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month." So they take the lamb on the 10th day of Nisan or Abib, and they keep it until the 14th day of the month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. So here we see that Passover occurs the 14th day of the same month. And then here in Exodus 13:10 we read, "Thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in his season from year to year." So God is letting us know that there's a very specific season of Passover. And we've learned from the Bible that Christ was crucified on March 31st / April 1st. That'd be Nisan 14, which is our springtime. And so Passover occurs sometime in spring. So we know that it's the spring season. And we also learn in Exodus 13:4, "This day came ye out in the month Abib." Well, Abib actually means corn, if you look up the word. It's the same word for green ears of corn. And actually Moses tells a parable to Pharaoh. "But as for thee and thy servants, I know that ye will not fear Jehovah God. And the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in the ear," that's the word Abib, "and the flax was bold. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up." Now if you follow part 1 of this same study of the celestial clock, you'll see that we already showed the math on how to arrive at these dates. And we're given a choice of going 10 days forward or 10 days backwards. In the case of 1447 BC, Mr. Camping chose to go backwards to Thursday, March 21st / March 22nd of 1447 BC. Now we're going to show which one fits better with the Bible. If we go forward, and that would be actually till April 10th, because if you're going 10 days forward from March 31st, you're going to arrive at April 10th. We're going to see if that fits, or we're going to see if it fits to go backwards to March 21st. But just so you know, this was the date of Passover for 1447 BC, March 21st / March 22nd. Now, if we jump 40 years later, this is when they crossed the Jordan River. We'll see that Passover is calculated to be Saturday, March 29th / March 30th of 1407 BC. So here we read in Joshua 5:10, "And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho." So this is letting us know that if Passover was kept in 1447, the next day they left, then we're and this is 40 years later, this is 1407, that means we are correct in understanding that it's 40 years to the day. And so we're going to see if these dates fit in with the Bible. So we read this in Numbers 33:1. "These are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron." In this chapter of Numbers 33 shows the different encampments that Israel had over the 40-year period. Now we read in Numbers 33 verse 48, "And they departed from the mountains of Abraham and pitched in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho." So we can see they're getting close to their last encampment before crossing over the Jordan River. And they pitched by Jordan, from Beth Shemesh even unto Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. So this is their final encampment right here, Numbers 33:49. Keep that in mind. So just as a reminder, we're going to see if this fits. In 1447 BC, Passover was Thursday, March 21st / March 22nd, and in 1407 would be Saturday, March 29th / March 30th. So these are the two dates, the starting date and the end date. 40 years later, this is when Passover occurs, and we're going to see if this fits with the Bible. Now we're going to notice something, and that is the difference of 1447, March 21st, to 1407 is March 29th. If you do the math, that's a difference of 8 days. So it's an 8-day difference from when they had Passover in 1447 versus Passover in 1407. That is because we're using the Gregorian calendar. In the Hebrew calendar, it would be Nisan 14 to Nisan 14. But in the Gregorian calendar, it would be March 21st to March 29th. Now we're going to read Numbers 33, verse 3. And they departed from Ramesses in the first month, so that would be Nisan or Abib, on the 15th day of the first month. So God is letting us know it wasn't the day of Passover, it was actually the next day. On the morrow after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with an high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. So Mr. Campion had wondered, why is God highlighting the fact that they left on the 15th day of the first month? So now we're going to use our calendar page. We're going to go to 1447 BC. We're going to see that Passover falls on March 21st / March 22nd. Now this would have been the beginning of Nisan 14. That was Passover. And then they left on the 22nd. That's Nisan 15, March 22nd. We're going to pull up this little tool here and go 1447 BC, March, and then we're going to do 1407 BC, March. We're going to compare the two calendars. So again, we've already mentioned that Passover is on March 21st of 1447, and in 1407 it lands on March 29th / 30th. So we've learned from the Bible just now that the Israelites left on the 15th, the very next day. So this would have been the 15th of Nisan. You can see the 15 there. This is March 22nd. If we go exactly 40 years from March 22nd to, this is 1407, so we're going to go to March 22nd, which lands on Nisan 6/7. This is exactly 40 years later to the day, March 22nd. Again, this would be 40 years later to the day in the Gregorian calendar. In the Hebrew calendar, you can see that it's not to the day yet because we're jumping from Nisan 14/15 all the way to Nisan 6/7. All right, so let's see if this fits with the Bible. So their last encampment would have been on March 22nd of 1407 BC. And we read in Joshua 3:1, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim. Remember in Numbers 33 verses 49, the last place they pitched, and they pitched by Jordan from Beth Shemesh even unto Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. So Abel Shittim, and we see here that they're removing from Shittim and coming to Jordan. He and all the children of Israel and lodged there before they passed over. So this is very important. God is letting us know that they lodged there. So if we go exactly 40 years to the day for March 22nd, the day they left Egypt, exactly 40 years later, we get to March 22nd. This is when they would have left Abel Shittim and made it the same day to Jordan, because Abel Shittim is a very small journey to Jordan. It's not a whole day trek. If you look here, it says, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan. There's no indication that this took longer than a day. And you'll see that they were actually very near Jordan, going back to Numbers 33, and they pitched by Jordan. So that's letting us know right here that from Beth Shemesh even unto Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. So this is letting us know that they're very close to Jordan. This isn't a 3-day journey or 5 or 10-day journey. This wasn't a long journey. In fact, this could have been something achieved maybe in 5 to 6 hours. So they would have lodged that same night that they left Abel Shittim. And you notice in Joshua 3:1, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim. So that means on the 22nd of March of 1407 BC, they would have left very early in the day and came to Jordan. So on the very same day, they made it to the Jordan River on March 22nd. And then the Bible lets us know, and he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. So the Bible is letting us know on the same day, March 22nd, they lodged there. And it came to pass, after 3 days, the officers went through the host. So again, we're given another time reference, after 3 days. And Mr. Camping had pointed out that this is Hebrew language for the end of 3 days. So if they first arrived on the 22nd, that's the first day. You have to count that because that's 1 day that they've actually arrived at Jericho. They would have lodged the night there. This would be the second day, March 23rd. And this would be the third day, March 24th, right here, which corresponds to Nisan 8/9, March 24th. And then we read Joshua 3:5, and Joshua said unto the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow Jehovah will do wonders among you. And Joshua spake unto the priests, saying, take up the ark of the covenant and pass over before the people. And they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. So this is letting us know that on the 24th, this is when Joshua said, on the morrow, we're going to pass over. So they lodged by Jordan 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And on the 24th, Joshua is letting the people know that on the morrow, they're going to cross over. This would be March 25th, which is Nisan 9/10. Now, what's interesting is the Bible lets us know, confirms that for us. We read in Joshua 4, verse 18, and it came to pass, when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of Jehovah were come up out of the midst of Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up unto the dry land, that the waters of Jordan returned unto their place, and flowed over all of his banks as they did before. So the Bible is letting us know that they crossed over Jordan, and this is when they crossed over Jordan. And the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. This is a very important time reference. And encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. So this is the 10th day on the first month. If we go back to the calendar, we have a match because the 25th is the morrow, and it's Nisan 9/10. This would be the 10th day of the month. So far, you can see out of the 8 days difference from March 21st to March 29th, we've made it 1, 2, 3. This is the 4th day. The Bible confirms it crossed over on Nisan 10, March 25th. And we know from the Bible that if we're on Nisan 10, we know Passover has to be on Nisan 14, 4 days later. And we read Joshua 5:10, and the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho. And so, for on the 10th, we go, and that would be 4 days later, because that's Nisan 14, they celebrate Passover. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nisan 13/14. This is when they celebrated Passover, March 29th. And it fits just like a puzzle. Because remember, Passover landed on March 21st of 1447 BC. And here, using that mathematical formula, it landed on March 29th. So this is biblical confirmation that we're on the right track with understanding March 21st/2nd, and then for 1407 BC, it's March 29th/March 30th. Now, as something else that's kind of curious that I've noticed, in Joshua 5:11 we read, and they did eat of the old corn of the land on the morrow after the Passover, unleavened cakes and parched corn in the selfsame day. Now, this is a very curious verse. Mr. Camping didn't point this out, but if we look on the calendar, if Passover ends on the 30th, because it's still Nisan 14 here, then the day after Passover would be Nisan 15/16. This would be March 31st. And we read after the Passover unleavened cakes and parched corn in the self same day. Now this is actually very curious because March 31st is actually the day that Christ was crucified on the cross. We saw that with the celestial clock tool. In 33 AD, Christ was crucified on Thursday, March 31st. And here, God is highlighting the fact that after Passover occurs in 1407 BC, this is when they did eat of the old corn of the land, and on the morrow after the Passover unleavened cakes and parched corn in the self same day. And the manna ceased on the morrow, and they had eaten of the old corn of the land. Neither had the children of Israel manna any more, but they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. And so that's very curious because this date will take us from here exactly 1,440 years later, because this is 1407 BC, to the cross when Christ was crucified. And actually it was the beginning of Passover when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane. So this will take you March 31st all the way to the Garden of Gethsemane, March 31st of 33 AD. So exactly 1,440 years later to the day. Now let's suppose that we shouldn't go 10 days backwards from March 31st. That instead of going to March 21st, we're actually going to try to play out the scenario where we go 10 days forward to April 10th/11th for Passover. And we're going to see if this fits with the Bible, if going forward would fit. So we're at April 10th. So in this scenario, we're going to assume we go 10 days forward and see if it fits with the Bible. So if Passover really occurred on April 10th of the 1447 BC, that means then we would go to the 11th. April 11th would be the day that they left. We go 40 years to the exact day. Well, the 11th would be here, but that's a problem because Passover would occur in 1407. This is just hypothetical, on April 2nd/3rd. If we were also to go forward in that year as well. If the 11th is when they make their last encampment and make it to the Jordan River, and they stay for 1 to 3 days, that means on the 4th day they would be crossing over Jordan, but that's Nisan 25/26. They didn't cross over. The Bible lets us know it was on the 10th that they crossed over. So already we can see that this won't fit. And then 4 days later would be Passover. Well, that's Nisan 29. Passover is on the 14th. So already it doesn't work to go forward in this manner. Alternatively, let's just assume that we go forward 10 days for 1447. So still keeping this on April 10th. But in 1407, instead of going forward, we just kept it in the backwards direction, which would still be March 29th/30. And we'll see if it fits. So if they left on the April 11th of 1447 BC, and you get to March 11th, then you'd have to say, okay, they encamped this day, the 12th, the 13th. They cross over Jordan on the 14th, which isn't the 10th, so we already ran into an issue. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would be the date of Passover. But again, it doesn't fit, so that doesn't work either. So in this case, we can clearly see that this is not the correct direction. That in the year 1447 BC, going 10 days forward would not work. It doesn't fit with the Bible. But going 10 days behind fits perfectly like a glove.